what's on the way. Let's go ahead and immediately talk about this big 180. If you've walked outside over the past couple of days, for the most part, many of us got a bit of a break from the humidity and a break from the heat and a break from the active weather. However, things are starting to ramp back up, and we can see that very clearly here in the mid-levels. This is our European ensemble. It's a great tool to kind of look at the overall pattern on the way. This is what's on the way by the time we go into this weekend. Red starts to work back into the map. It looks like a heat dome going to set up shop basically right over the Ohio Valley. So the heat, the humidity roaring back as we go into next week, and that is going to really not feel very good after the nice couple of days that we had to start this week. Yeah, remember, we are still in summertime. Even if meteorological fall technically starts next Tuesday, it unfortunately will not feel like it. On top of that, we're going to have plenty of areas of low pressure, mid-latitudinal cyclone season ramping up. This is typical as we start to go into the fall months. You get more of this clashing of cooler polar air and muggier tropical air. That's going to fuel low pressure, and that is going to move right along the periphery of this big ridge of high pressure. So here's one, because that's going to tie directly into the storminess and the severe weather side of things. The past couple of days, as I've said 1,000 times, were actually pretty nice for many of us over the eastern United States. Even this afternoon, here, some of that kind of lingering into parts of the Northeast, but look at the heat and humidity working back in from the south as that big ridge starts to overtake the pattern. So this is your muggy meter. A lot of people get dew point, which is what this is, confused with humidity. Humidity just tells you what percentage of the atmosphere is full of water. So if you have 55% humidity, 55% of the way to condensation, basically, is what that means. The dew point, however, this tells you how much water the atmosphere can hold, and that's what we feel on our skin a lot more than the humidity. For example, if it's snowing outside, you're at 100% humidity, but it doesn't feel muggy, does it? No. In the summertime, though, the dew point is what we're going to look at. Anything above a 70, which is that kind of purplish area on your map, that is oppressive humidity. That is a wet blanket kind of feel, the air that you can wear, as people say. And look at it really working back in here really as soon as right now. And as we go into this weekend, we are here a little bit later on in the video. And in terms of actual temperatures, let's talk about the high temperatures that this pattern is going to be bringing. Tomorrow for your Thursday, highs really not all that bad. Actually pretty comfortable, all things considered, as we still are enjoying some slightly cooler temperatures. Not cold by any means, but better than blazing hot for sure, for most of us at least. As we go into next week, this is when it builds in. Check it out. High temperatures by Sunday starting to get into the 90s for Louisville, much of Illinois, Indiana, Ohio, approaching back up to the 90s into Knoxville, Nashville, Atlanta, boiling hot over in Oklahoma City, Dallas, and Memphis. And this continues to work east and north through the middle of the week. By the time we get into Tuesday afternoon, high temperatures approaching triple digits in Washington, D.C. We've got low 90s down into the Carolinas, mid 90s into the Ohio Valley. You'll notice, though, slightly cooler up here, as that is where the storm train is going to be crossing through, but taking advantage of this heat and humidity to the south to really fuel those mid-latitudinal systems. So let's tie this into the instability forecast and track these systems out, give you an idea of what that instability. This is your most unstable cape, so this is your thunderstorm fuel. Is a great way to look at this map. Anytime you get into the kind of yellow, oranges, and especially the reds, that's whenever you start to have enough to really fuel severe storms. And you can see as we go into this weekend, really as early as tomorrow, which to me I kind of consider Thursday pre-weekend, if you will, that instability though building back in. So I think we're gonna have a pretty stormy Thursday and Friday afternoon for a lot of folks in the southeast, and that will include the threat of severe weather as you have that instability really locked into place. And you can see as we go into next week, that instability really rushes back in. By Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, you have got a lot of cape or that thunderstorm fuel parked over really millions of us across the eastern part of the United States. On top of that, we're going to have some wind shear. Remember, these storm systems are going to be bringing the wind shear with them. So let's overlap it. I'll keep the cape on the map. Let's add wind shear to it. And I have the wind shear at a contour that'll only show up if it's really enough to maybe induce some severe weather. So by Thursday, Friday, most of the wind shear up to the north, kind of away from the worst of the instability. So probably not a very organized severe weather threat over the next couple of days. However, we will still see severe weather with all that instability, downdrafts, micro microburst, strong straight line winds going to be a real possibility with any storms that flare up. And you can kind of see that, or you will see that here in future radar. By Sunday, look at the overlapping beginning. We've got instability. We've got wind shear. We'll have to watch these storms. Strong straight line winds going to be the main threat. You can see here into New England by tomorrow evening, widespread showers and storms working through. As you go down to the south, also pretty widespread showers and storms over the Carolinas, Virginia, Florida, Georgia, Alabama. So some pretty loud storms, I think, tomorrow evening on Thursday. And we're not done after that. As you go on into Friday, as far out as this model will go, you can see the beginnings of more of those afternoon storms developing. So going to be a pretty stormy 48 hours ahead. In terms of rainfall over just the next 48 hours, the model here showing some of the hot spots down into the southeast. We're going to have some pretty heavy rain, I think, here along coastal sections of South Carolina and right along the Gulf Coast as well. Heck, even the Outer Banks of North Carolina. I'll zoom into some areas down this way. And I know you see 2.4 inches there in Columbia. Doesn't exactly mean it's going to fall there. It's one of those things where just look at the general pattern and maybe not the exact place. But you can definitely see some of these isolated spots getting heavy rain out of this, a couple of inches just over the next 48 hours. So you can see here over South Carolina, having some towns getting maybe up to 3 to 4 inches if you get parked under one of those very heavy storms. Columbia, South Carolina, no stranger to that. They've had that happen a couple times this summer where Columbia's kind of flooded a bit. Up into the northeast, also heavy rain. Watch out here up towards Poughkeepsie. You can see 7 inches, probably overdoing it a bit, but nonetheless, isolated pockets of some flooding going to be something that we definitely watch with these storms working on through. All right, now let's move radar into next week, show you those complexes of storms, and then end it out with a look at the tropics. All right, let's time this out for you and give you an update on the future radar. We'll kind of pick up where we left off on Friday evening. You could see those widespread showers and storms over the southeast. Just a reminder, they will likely have some severe characteristics to them. Strong straight line winds, plenty of lightning, some small hail cannot be ruled out by any means as well. That's for your Friday. Then we go into Saturday. Saturday, once again, some scattered storms over parts of the southeast. College football starting back up. So if you're in eastern North Carolina, South Carolina, Georgia, Florida, having the highest chance of seeing that rain, maybe even a little bit up into the Midwest, you can see some storms working on through there. In terms of the next more organized system, that arrives by the time we go into Sunday. You can see these active storm systems up to the north. But like I said, down to the south, with that heat and humidity building back in, you still have afternoon storms in the southeast, although maybe not as widespread as the storms to the north. Keep it going, and that rain continues to cross through here by Tuesday. I will say, obviously, I showed you the temperatures earlier, definitely on the very warm side. If you're lucky enough to get some rain and cloud cover out of this pattern, places like Michigan, Wisconsin, New England going to have the highest chance of that. That will help keep your temperatures down, which is good. But again, severe weather, strong straight line winds, heavy rain, things like that, going to be something we need to watch with these storms Tuesday. Although this is Tuesday morning, looks like a pretty active time frame by Tuesday afternoon. Also some pretty active weather there into the Northeast and New England. You keep it going, and honestly, folks, it's just more the same. It's these complexes of storms working through the northern tier of the country here by Thursday of next week, Friday of next week. It just keeps on coming and really just does not stop. And that kind of brings me to the next point, which is that, this pattern just does not. The next name, D for Dolly, which is, again, incredibly ironic considering, obviously, the passing of Dolly Parton yesterday. Rest in peace, the queen of country, but completely off topic. Here's the area that we're watching. It's this guy right here, and I'll tell you, folks, I give up. I give up on the tropics this year. I don't know what else to say. The NHC also probably scratching their heads out here. It looks healthy. It really does, but the models have just completely dropped it, and this is probably the fifth time or so that's happened this season where there's been strong model consensus for one of these waves coming off of Africa to, do their thing and, form into a named storm, and then it just never happens. So the National Hurricane Center for this one dropped it from 70% to a 60% chance of development, and usually with that, the trend is your friend. Now, like I said, still not the worst looking storm. I mean, it's got the convection around it. It very clearly has a cyclonic spin to it. I'll be honest, there's a very real chance it already is a tropical system. We just don't have the airplane data, and satellites are only going to tell us so much out here. I would say there's a lot of times that these things are technically named storms by the textbook definition, but just never gets it. You can see the track, though, and here's one thing that has changed, and something we want to keep an eye on, is because this storm looks weaker now in the models, now again looking relatively healthy right now, that's going to help to push it further off to the west. What's going to happen is this big mid-level ridge over the kind of Atlantic right now, and I think I hypothetically have the map pulled up. Yeah, perfect, right here. We will show you this.